Hey everyone, it's Noah Barnett, the head of Purple Shadow Gaming, and we are back for another episode of Quest Like a Pro. Fabled meta is underway. We are ready to go. We're in it. We're in the midst of it. There were 3 big tournaments. We had release weekend, and we're going to get into talking all about these tournaments. We're going to break down what showed up, what didn't show up, was it expected, what was unexpected. As always, I'm joined by Andy and Justin, both part of Purple Shadow Gaming. So grateful you guys are here. How was your release weekend? I know we didn't play any core constructed really, or maybe some testing here and there, but like really just did some Fable opening stuff. But how did that all go for you? Justin, I'll start with you because I like what Justin does for release weekends, and I'm kind of jealous that I didn't do it as well.
We created a bingo sheet. We shared it with some different groups and got together with some friends and opened up packs together, and we all throw packs in the center, and whoever gets their bingo first gets the packs. So that's kind of cool. And so you're kind of rooting for what everybody else is like opening, and like you're having a good time with all of it. And didn't open any Dumbos, didn't open any Lilos, didn't get any Enchanteds. I got lots of Robins, lots of Maleficents. All the good old legendaries that are like $2 now. So I got
Stitches.
7 legendaries and in a box and a third. I didn't only open like a box. So the count of legendaries was good, just not great cards.
So for those that might not like fully understand the bingo thing, can you just give us like a little bit of a double tap? Like when you say you create a bingo sheet, like what does that mean? What were some of the examples of like how the bingo sheet would work?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. You can find it on Lady Lore 20. She'll post it. It's things like open all 6 locations. So all the locations, there's 1 in each color. They're all common. So pretty easy to do. It's just a matter of kind of getting them in a row, right? Your typical bingo, or like the Dumbo's on there because that's obviously is a highly touted card. So it had to be one of the bingo items. The free space was any ally. It's like there's like 43 of them or something. So as long as you're gonna get an ally, it's a free space. So that's the kind of the idea.
I love it. It makes opening packs like more fun, right? So you can just like open to open. You can open and like look at all the art. You can open to play Pack Rush. You can open to play Sealed or Draft, or you can do something like this with your friends, Bingo. And I feel like it's such just like a lighthearted thing. Yeah, I love it. Thanks for sharing, Justin. And Andy, what did you and I both did similar things this weekend, at least on Friday. But what did you get into on Friday, and what did you think of Limited in Fable?
Yeah, so Friday for pre-release, I went to a local store, NBG, and we played some draft. I love the limited format this set. I think, like we talked about in the last video, there's a lot of good bombs in this set. I got a couple bombs, but I played against people who had insane bombs, and I did very poor this weekend, but it was still lots of fun. Very close games. It didn't seem like it was over in like 5 turns. So it's all about the fun and having fun with our friends and community. So I had a blast.
Yeah. And before I talk about my experience, you also like opened packs, and you opened a specific card that I'm a little jealous of.
I did. I opened the iconic that we talked about last video. I got the mini.
The iconic.
Iconic. So that was, I kind of froze. I was like, wait, is this it? And it was. And I was like, oh, that's awesome.
Did you play it?
Did I play it? Oh, no. I opened it at home, not in draft.
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
Not in the draft.
But I would have played it if I was at the draft.
So funny story, and I'll be the only person that finds it funny, is I bought 2 cases and was like, I only need 1 case. Andy, do you want to buy my other case from me? And he's like, yeah, sure, because we got a great deal on it, whatever. And so I go pick up the 2 cases, and I'm like, which one should I open? And I'm like, I will keep this one. And I give Andy the one, and clearly he not only had an iconic, you had an enchanted in the case as well, right?
Yes, I got the enchanted genie. So that was pretty cool.
Enchanted Genie, which looks incredible. The art on that genie is awesome. But really all around, all of the enchanteds look incredible.
Mm-hmm.
A bunch of people in our community were around, and tons of people opened different things. I got the chance to opened 2.5 cases over the course of the weekend in some capacity or another. And we opened a Beast Enchanted. We opened Corella Deville, Congo, and Max. And so we got 4 enchanteds out of 2.5 cases. So I cannot complain at all. And all of the artwork was just Truly incredible. Truly incredible. Fortunately, not compared to Justin. I think I opened like 6 Lilos and like 6 Dumbos, but we won't talk about that. I'm trying to give them back to the community. I think I'm giving a few to Andy. I'm giving a few to some of our other teammates, not for $75, which I think they're currently at, but a fair price. But I think one of my favorite things, I have them all laid out right here. This many Hades.
Oh my goodness.
What?
And I'm so grateful that this card was like $6 on TCG Player, and it's back up to like 14 or 15. And so I'm selling my first chapter ones for like 20. And then I'm selling some of these ones to try to make up something. Because I'm like, I don't need this many Hades. I already had 2 playsets of Hades from Luke and I. Luke is my son. He's also on Purple Shadow Gaming. But we already had 2 playsets of Hades. We don't need 12 more or whatever. So those will be out there on TCG Player if you need them. They're there right now. There's 2 playsets for them listed at TCG Player. You can get 4 from me and then 4 from me. It'll be great. Enough of that. Release weekend was really fun. I did a draft, same draft that Andy did. I was in a different pod completely. My first pick, first pack was Tinkerbell. My first pick, pack 2 was Dumbo. My first pick, pack 3 was Scar. And in both the Dumbo pack and the Scar pack, there were also epics that I had to pass. And this was when they were like $25, $30 or whatever. So I'm just like, oh my gosh, these packs are so good. And so I had to pass epics because I'm like, I can't not pick these cards. So yeah, I had Scar, Dumbo, and Tinkerbell, and then just like all of the evasives in my deck. My deck was truly insane. And I had 2 of the little Dumbos. I had a Tinkerbell that gives your a card evasive. I had stand up, the action that gives +2 and evasive until the next turn. Like at one point, my opponent looks at my board and she was a newer player. And so we were playing really slow. I was teaching her how to play. I had all my characters exerted, maybe like 6 characters. And she's like, okay, can I challenge any of them? And I was like, no, like I know it stinks and it's like not very fun, but like all of them are evasive and none of your characters are evasive. So like you can't challenge mine. So you just lose. And at that game, I also ended with 15 cards in my hand off Dumbo. It was a brutal game. So it was just one of those games where you just like, it was brutal. I did only win the first round and the second round. And then the third round, it was getting really late. My opponent had seen how badly I beat up on my second round opponent. And then we agreed not to play the last one. And then the store gave us both packs. It was like pack per win. So I only went 2-0. I think I would have gone 3-0. But it was really fun. It was a good time. Release weekend is done and dusted. We're all now chasing, Dumbos and other things in our dreams. But let's get into competitive Lorcana. That's why we're here. That's why you all are here listening and watching. And so we want to talk about 3 tournaments, what showed up in week 1 of the meta. We're going to look at them. I'm going to pull them up on my side. But Andy, I'll kick it over to you. Like looking at these 3 tournaments and kind of what showed up. Big showing for Amethyst. Big showing for Dumbo.
Yep.
Expected or unexpected? And then were there any surprises to you on the weekend looking at these 3 tournaments and just kind of what you were hearing in the chatter?
I think it was expected. Purple has the best draw in the game and has some of the best evasives in the game, including the card we've been talking about most, Dumbo, but as well as Genie. Those 2 cards are very powerful together. And if you pair them with a color with removal like Steel or a color with ramp like Sapphire, then you can use that card advantage to win the game. So I think we kind of talked about it last week. We kind of predicted a lot of purple.
Yes, we definitely predicted purple, and it definitely showed up. And so let me pull up this first screen here, where this was the tournament that was at Southside Gaming. Shout out to Southside Gaming for always hosting just kind of incredible tournaments, especially like first weekend, just diving in. All 3 of these organizers, huge shout outs to them because they help make the game continue to kind of run. And us commentator people have something to talk about, right? And prepare with as we head into future weekends where CCS is coming up, PPG, bunch of other tournaments, etc. So shout out to Southside and the other organizers this weekend. But Andy, this tournament results really just proves your point. So I'll kind of list this out for those audio only listeners. Every single deck in top 8 had purple in it or had amethyst in it. So 8 decks, 8 amethyst decks. 2 of them were paired with steel. 5 of them were paired with sapphire. And our good old friend Ruby Amethyst had to make the cut, snuck in there. with a top 8 roundup. Justin, have you had a chance to dig into any of these decks, specifically the Ruby Amethyst deck at all?
The Ruby Amethyst, not a lot. The other ones more so.
Well, we'll come back to the other ones because they're, 2 decks we talked a lot about. But I do think I want to like sit on this Ruby Amethyst deck because we said the Ruby Amethyst is not going to die. It's not going anywhere. There's definitely a game out there. And we saw, obviously, it showed up. And so shout out to Eric Thompson for bringing Ruby Amethyst and believing and kind of bringing this to the table. The Ruby Amethyst was built kind of what I expected, but anything that's like surprising in here or things from a strategy standpoint that you thought was interesting or an interesting take here? Justin, I'll let you kind of comment first. And then Andy, if you have anything to add.
I've tried. Everybody's got a weakness. At the very end of last set, just as a 1-0, I went to 61 cards, the faux pas playing 61, but I just wanted to run something a little bit spicy in it because it feels like a bell that draws cards, right? It's a little harder to set up, but really he was making it work here with lots of things that damage itself. So that's kind of a cool to see that card in there, and then Lose the Way. I've never really seen that make it to any meta deck, so I guess more to come on that one, huh?
Yeah, for sure. And so for those listening to audio only, Lose the Way is a 2-cost inkable action that says exert chosen character. Then you may choose and discard a card. If you do, the exerted character can't ready at the start of the next turn. So it kind of has an Elsa effect on one character where you get to choose whether you want it. You can basically pay an extra cost, a kicker, to keep it exerted. But I do think what's interesting about this exerting effect is in playtesting leading up to CCS, which a few of us are headed to next weekend, board states do kind of get static. And so things like Elsa, where we expect to say, hey, we're going to exert your board and then we're going to challenge into things. Or even the big Elsa has kind of made a return, which we'll see in a minute. But cards like this are really interesting to be able to exert and kind of shake up the board. So you force opportunities for Shark and other things. But Andy, anything about this Ruby Amethyst deck that kind of stood out to you, or where maybe this color has kind of created, it has a new identity now. It's not really like a super control. It's kind of like you just play on curve and you have evasives and you just go for it.
Yeah, the card that stood out watching some like top 8 matches with this deck was Mother Gothel. The 3-cost 1/4. Whenever one of your character challenges, you may move 1 damage. Not that one. That's Madam.
Oh, the other one. Oops.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I
Either way, Mother Gothel, right?
Yes,
here.
Mother Gothel. I thought it was really cool to see the challenging and like you have to do, put everything in the bag and do all the ordering. It was really cool to see how they were removing evasives using that tactic, hitting things that were non-evasive and moving the damage one by one so that they can remove like a genie or they can remove an opposing Elsa just to gain board control. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's interesting about this is I remember how good this card was in Limited.
Mm-hmm.
And so like there are some of these cards that like you haven't really played with or they haven't seen their day, but like when you recall playing Limited, Sealed, or Draft, you're like, oh, I remember that card. That card had like really interesting interactions. And I think there's a huge opportunity now for some of those cards to keep resurfacing, which is really, really cool. So let's jump back. The rest of the top 8 was Purple Steel or Amethyst Steel and Sapphire Amethyst. Most of these decks, I think every single one of them played Dumbo except for one. But I think if I read the chatter right on X and social media, it was because No I'm Not couldn't get Dumbos. And so it wasn't that this list wasn't intentionally excluding Dumbos. I think it was like a access to Dumbos issue. But did you all hear otherwise? Or can we just assume all these decks played Dumbo?
That's what I heard as well. I heard he couldn't get Dumbos.
Something like that.
Which kind of makes sense on weekend 1. But at the end of the day, I thought what was interesting was they did all include Dumbo. So let's start out with the Sapphire Amethyst deck. So we'll choose this one because they all kind of look the same. What do you think? This is Blurple showing week 1. This one's actually really interesting. I picked a spicy one. I didn't realize that the Blue Fairy was in it. Yeah.
Justin, you want to take it away?
Sure. Yeah, the one jump, I've considered going to the 9 ramp and tried it for a little while, but it can junk up your hand kind of sometimes as a dead card. I mean, living the dream as Tipo sings it on 2, right? But it's not going to set it up very often with only really 6 options to do that. Maybe you're doing it with Blue Fairy. Now, the issue I have with Blue Fairy is like on 2, you really want to be ramping. So it it seems really hard to slot it into the curve here. I mean, I guess maybe you're doing like playing Dumbo and Dumbo and Blue Fairy on 6, or you yeah, I'm not sure how you're slotting in the curve here with Blue Fairy. So that's what's really stands out to me, is kind of hard to see the play lines on that one.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. And honestly, I've played against this deck a few times, like built like this on Thou Who Shall Not Be Named platform. And every time they played Blue Fairy, it was awkward because there's like Blue Fairy, and I'm like, okay, like, because you'll see in some of the other decks, I think they're opting for Basil, which is a 1-drop support character, whereas this one's like an evasive support character. So there is some value chain there, both with Dumbo and to be able to give support multiple times versus just kind of a single time with Basil. But it was awkward. The card I'll call out, which I've actually been so annoyed by, and I think last night in our group chat, I just said this card is so annoying or something along those lines, is this 4-cost Genie 3/5 uninkable. That when it quests, you can opt to shuffle it back in your deck and draw 3 cards. My opponent casts that card a turn. Next turn, shuffled it in. You shuffle before you draw 3, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And then they recast it.
That's fun.
We'll just leave it at that. It was not very
frustrated.
fun. It was not very fun. And I was like, man, this, because it's a 3/5 uninkable, which again, like normally this spot would maybe be taken up by a Scrooge or Iago. But if we're talking about uninkables, it's like, okay, I have a 5/5 quest for 2, where I have this like 3/5 thing that like can draw me 3 cards randomly. Like, it's very interesting. And every time someone's done it against me, I'm like, huh, I need to look at this card again. And so I was frustrated by it, but it also challenged me to just relook at cards after week 1 and just question, like, where does this fit in? I also saw it in the Amethyst Steel deck, which I thought was interesting. Just again, as another draw. I don't know if that deck really needs it because it has Dock as well and a few other 4-drop cards that can draw cards. But either way, it was interesting. But Andy, I wanted you to talk about another card that not surprised me, but again, I think it like showed up in a lot of decks this weekend, was this 3/7 Elephant. I thought we were done with the bounce package, but then the one bounce card's like, yo, you forgot about me. And it's like floating in like a giant character that's like, I was left in the box last set, and now I'm back because all my friends got banned or like rotated. So the elephant, like 3/7 elephant.
Yeah,
Good, bad, ugly on the elephant.
It's a big-bodied character, that's for sure. Steel's not going to get rid of that if you can play that on 3. The only
so
problem...
it is for Steel. Is that why it's here? Like, is that, or do you think is there another reason it's here?
No, it's strictly for Steel. And I feel like in the Blurple Mirror, it's very low tempoed and easily removed, especially if you're playing Scrooge instead of this elephant. It could hit it if it turns sideways, and if it could also get exerted from Elsa with the Scrooge on board, and it just gone. Like, you don't get no value from it. So yeah, it's just very low tempo against the mirror, but it's very good against Steel, and that's why you want to play this card.
Yeah,
Steel can get rid of it.
No,
I played I was trying the Dumbo build, and my wife cast double strength on turn 4 on me with 4 characters on board. Bye, Dumbo.
the old double strength.
But
I thought you were going to say they cast this card, Lilo.
Oh, Lilo.
Was able to then take it out, because that's how I took the elephant down. Is I cast Lilo, and I was able to like get in there with like Hook plus something, type thing to take it out. I think it was like Hook plus Genie or something like that, to still only lose 1 character to it, but I was able to clear it out somewhat efficiently. But it's definitely a nuisance if it sticks and you don't have a solution for it. It does kind of put the full brakes on you as a Steel deck, whether you're playing Amber Steel or Amethyst Steel. And it's just frustrating. So definitely an interesting card, and I'm sure we'll see more elephants, maybe some more 4-cost Genies. But yeah. And then last but not least, I want to pull up Zach Bivens. Zach Bivens is just great guy all around. And I want to highlight his list. He only made top 8 and then did lose in the top 8. But his list and the person that won, Tiago's list, are very similar. But I think what I like about Zach's deck is it felt like more structured. There wasn't as many like Jasmines and other things like that, which sounds interesting. But I like this deck outside of the 1 rose. But I kind of like the 1 rose. It's like, it's cute. And I'm sure there's a reason why there's a 1 rose in this. in this deck. But this deck felt like it's kind of giving identity to Amethyst Steel. And the card that honestly surprised me was actually where Dumbo fit into this list. I didn't have Dumbo on my bingo card for Amethyst Steel. I've been playing without Dumbo, and now I want to play with Dumbo.
It's a great card.
What do we
It's
think
got a
about
lot
this
of-
list and kind of this direction as kind of building identity for Amethyst Steel?
I think it's got a lot of good cards to answer the meta with all the evasive answers here, especially with Madam Mim, the Skater Mim. Jafar and Genie both answer the big evasive problems that we've got. The same with the Jafar 3/2, can help buff up either one of those guys, or Happy, right, to take down that stuff. And then you've got your own evasives here and plenty to clear an opposing Iago out of the way. So it looks pretty strong.
Yeah, no, I think it looks like it's teched for steel. I think his deck is main. He likes to play the anti-aggro list. He doesn't like playing Amber Steel. He said in like previous interviews that if the deck to beat is Amber Steel, he's gonna play Purple Steel so he can counter it. And that's what it feels like. Madam Mim is really good against the steel matchup because it makes everything really strong and makes your little weak characters like Doc and Diablo actually fight. So that helps in those steel matchups.
Yeah. I did like the fact that, and he explained it on stream, so I'll explain it here for those that didn't listen to it. When he was questioned about why he included the 3-drop Jafar instead of the new Lilo. So the 3-drop Jafar is a 3/2 quest for 2 that gives +2 challenger to 1 character. And the question in the obvious way is like, well, Lilo is clearly better than that card because it gives +2 challenger to all your characters for a turn. And his explanation was he found that even when he played Lilo, he was only trying to really give 1 character +2 on average. And that the 3 strength and the 2 lore like outweighed the +2 to everything. And so he was kind of talking through as like he was looking at this. It's just happened more often that he only wanted to give +2 to 1 character, even when he cast Lilo. And then with the trade off is that you then have a 3 strength 2 quester instead of a 2 strength 1 quester, which Lilo is after it hits the board. So I think he said that the ceiling was really high for Lilo, but the floor was really low. Whereas like with this, like it felt more value no matter what the circumstances were. And he was able to know he didn't have Lilo and kind of play to that, but this card ended up being better. So again, interesting choice. I first saw him was like, maybe you couldn't find Lilos. And I was like, Lilo is like, you have to be able to find Lilos if you're going to play this deck. And then he explained it on stream and I was like, oh, I really like that. That's really interesting. Maybe paired with Mim, you needed the +2 to everything less often. Whereas historically, maybe without the Mim, you needed the +2 to everything in this deck. I'm not sure, but I think it was really interesting to hear him talk about that and lean in.
Maybe in top 8, right? Now they knew they have open deck lists, and maybe now they knew they didn't have Lilo, and so they know they can quest a little more freely and not get punished. So maybe that was also part of. It's just one match, right? In top 8, and then he lost. It could just be bad luck too, but that's part of the fear I think that everybody's been talking about with Lilos is if you don't have the Lilos in an open deck list, then people don't know that they don't have to play around it anymore. So it's almost like it probably should be, maybe that White Rose should be one of Lilo. So he has all the other punishes
Just
here, right?
2. Yeah. Yeah, I like it. Or like maybe 2 Jafars, 2 Lilos instead of the Rose and the 3rd Jafar. Like I think there's some interesting things here, but I do think you bring up a valid point that most people don't think about in competitive play is there's a closed deck mindset and then there's an open deck mindset. And so when you're in these bigger tournaments where they do go to top cut and there are then open deck lists, you not including things like I've seen these shadow shift tinks decks where you just play Little Tink and you don't play Big Tink. And just the threat of Big Tink actually makes you play completely different. But like you literally don't have it in your deck. But they don't know that. And they have to play around it because the more popular list did have both like the shift line. But you just like don't play a bad card that's a 6-drop that usually you ink and you just play the 3-drop and then they just think you have the 6-drop, which is incredible until you get to open deck lists and they're like, oh, you don't have it. And in this case, like, oh, you don't have Lilo. So I can just play around it. I don't have to play around it. I do think the 1 White Rose is interesting. Any thoughts on why there's only 1 White Rose? Because clearly, like, it's not just for the open deck list because you would have included 1 Lilo as well, just to throw people off, potentially. Maybe there's some math reason you need 5 Cobras somehow, even though it's like maybe a partial Cobra.
Yeah, it could just be for that extra reach. In Top Cut, you have to play around that 1 card. Like, say they can quest to 19, but now you have to choose to remove an extra character on board, or quest and allow that them to go to 19 and lose to that 1-up Rose. It could be that.
Yeah. In that situation, knowing it's open deck lists, do you do that? Like, do you assume they have Rose in that? Like, I guess it would really depend. Like, we'd have to have a whole board state because it's like, can I play around Rose and still win anyways? And so I just need to like play around Rose and also still set myself up to win.
I feel
There's
like
part of me
most
that's like,
of the
if I
time,
don't play around Rose, then I can just try to like quest out and win. But if they go to 19 and then they play Rose and I lose, like it feels bad. But like, where do you? Do you think these micro decisions are like, it's hard to decide in the moment what to do? Justin?
I found a lot of instances when I play around Giant Cobra and I'm like, well, if you got Rose, you got Rose, and it's all like I'll let you go to like to 17, but not to 18. And so Rose is oddly in a lot of games hasn't been the issue for me. A Giant Cobra has been what I've played around, and then you have to also obviously make sure you have the extra card in hand, otherwise your opponent doesn't need to worry about you having it.
Yeah.
But jokingly, maybe he only had 3 Jafars. And so he played
There's no way.
Rose.
There's no way.
Okay, we'll assume that. You heard it here first. He only has 3 Jafars.
But he had 4
I don't think that's the case. Yeah, 4 Dumbos, 3 Jafars. It's tough life out there. Tough life. You have to sacrifice somewhere so your Dumbo can eat. Let's move along. I think what was interesting about this tournament, it was very much what we predicted, which is kind of Amethyst is going to reign supreme. I definitely thought it was interesting that no Amber Steels made the top cut here. I do believe an Amber Steel made a top cut elsewhere, but Amber Steel was kind of the talk of the town going into the early testing for set 9 meta and the rotation. And obviously it didn't show up at all here. And maybe it's just because these Amethyst decks were like well prepared for it. And like the meta kind of established itself 3 or 4 weeks ago. And it's kind of just fully evolved already into like what we're seeing here. But just for comparisons, let's jump over to some of the other tournaments. A lot of the same. So all the purple decks in the bottom half of top 8. But there was 2 decks that were interesting that were different. So I just kind of want to touch on these. The first one is a Sapphire Steel. We're going to look at Pleakley is King. That's what
Blue
this deck is
Steel.
called.
Let's go.
So like I was saying, let me go back to this, though, is just highlighting that most of the decks were all the same except for 2 decks. The first one is this Pleakley is King Sapphire Steel deck. What's interesting is that there's a key card missing that I think a lot of people were excited about, is the 5 cost Jasmine that shifts for 2. So this deck does have Jasmine, but has the new 5 cost Steel Jasmine, but didn't opt for the kind of ally shift line that was being kind of raved about, kind of going into the weekend. But it didn't show up. It didn't really like show up, or it didn't show up in the results, but this deck did. And so what does this deck have going for it, especially if we consider it competing into a kind of sea of Amethyst?
It has a lot of ramp, that's for sure. with I think Pleakley coming back because it's easier to keep a 1-drop, 2-drop alive without, in the past we had Storm, we had Cinderella turn 1, we had Songs to play. So things live more easily now, and people do not target your 1-drops with a strength or any other removal. So it's easier to like go Tipo into Pleakley and double ramp and get to your high end costs, which are like the big Jasmine, the 3/7 that's new, the Tinkerbell, Hades, Vincenzo. And I think that's where other decks have a problem with this deck because of the big bodies and the effects that it comes with them.
Yeah, it can get to 6 pretty quickly. And more consistently because it does have those 12 ramp spells, because it also plays Sail.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I've even actually like T-Po'd, sailed, Pleakley, and then like I think I win this game. I'm already at 7, basically. Because then you just play big body after big body after big body.
Mhm.
But Justin, on first take, yeah, what do you like about this deck? And then maybe even like where you think it could shine in this kind of Amethyst meta that's shaping up.
I really like Beyond the Horizon. I think it's a really good card, especially if your opponent's loading up on cards too, so you can also punish there. But once you get to 4 ink, you just everything is a really strong character. Maybe the weakest one might be Robin Hood, but it still has you still can get a lot of value out of just that one draw and being able to deal with evasives. I guess that's your weakness here, really, is you only have 5 answers to evasives as long as they're not playing Iagos. Then you have to deal with Dumbo, Genie, Elsa. That could have been his
Yeah.
downfall.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what is interesting here is I think if I was playing, like, let me comment really quickly. I do love that this deck plays Beyond the Horizon because I do think Blurple, Sapphire Amethyst, and a few of the other decks like can just like really run away with the games. And I think Beyond the Horizon actually like level sets the game again and kind of puts you back on level terms, and can kind of punish them for kind of like ramping up cards like you would do in kind of a Sapphire mirror match. And you kind of just like reset them by singing away their card draw that they just prioritized. I also think Aurora is insane. This card's getting a lot of like love in certain circles that I've been reading into, and I like underestimated this card. I cut it for my Sapphire Steel deck, and now like I really want to take a look at it again. But just giving all your other characters ward again, like ward was like the winning keyword in the last meta, and it's like wait. We can give all our characters ward, and then if we have double Aurora on board, like
You can't do anything. You can't be prep.
that's it. Like you just walk away. Your job is done. I feel like if you land double Aurora, it's just like okay, I win the game, right? Like you just scoop it up. Not necessarily, but I think like double Aurora or even single Aurora kind of puts your opponent in like a weird check where they're like, oh, now I can't like do what I want to do with your characters. I have to like deal with Aurora first to then be able to deal with these other characters, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah, it's actually interesting there's no Scar, the new Scar that everyone's raving about, because the ward would be interesting to have on the Scar.
So like Aurora into Scar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's not enough allies is the
You're just
problem.
not playing a lot of allies. Yeah. See, I will say the allies deck I was playing originally had Aurora in it. So it was like ally Jasmine Shift, but with Aurora instead of Alice. And I actually like now kind of want to conceptually go back and say like maybe I just play Aurora over Alice because I don't necessarily need to use the Alice to like challenge my opponent's boards with support. I rather just need to support my characters by playing Aurora into Scar. Or Aurora into Tinkerbell even, which kind of like shuts down the board. Like there's just like a lot of different things here. I think they're really interesting. They can't Hades you, they can't Elsa you. They have to deal with Aurora first.
I like this.
18.
I like this.
There's only 18 allies? Yeah, 18.
And there's only 10 uninkables? No, 12. 12 unинkables?
There's 4 docks, 4 Hades.
14 with BTH.
Yeah, 14. Yep.
But you got
Okay.
Mulan to cycle. I do like the
Yeah.
visions. A lot of blue steel players are not playing visions, and I think it's kind of nice to like visions find that dock or visions find your answer for the next turn, like Hades or Vincenzo, and just start playing those big bodies.
Yeah. We already talked about this on the previous podcast, but does the pouncing card give evasive through the turn, or is it just on this turn?
Pouncing?
The 2-drop or the 2-cost blue action that gives -2 and evasive, -2 to a character and evasive to a character. I don't think it's through I think it's just this turn.
Don't like smash though in this, I don't think.
I think that's what I was thinking, Justin, is I'm like, I might play pouncing over smash.
I think
'cause-
Smash gets rid of Dumbos, which is the problem in this format.
Like an untapped Dumbo. Yeah, because
It
pouncing
does, but
requires them to be tapped.
how long you holding Smash for though? I mean, because they shouldn't be playing Dumbo until pretty late anyways.
I mean, if they play it late, you have Vincenzo. It does 3 damage.
Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
my point though. Why are you like
It's like
'cause
extra
it's
security.
such a down tempo play. You're not doing anything. You just you just pass your turn and let the opponent do something else then.
Yeah. It feels like you wanted to play Fire the Cannons, but you couldn't because of the Uninkables.
Yeah.
But I do think you need something else here. And again, maybe Smash is the best choice, but you need something that targets something and you need something that can like shift tempo. Smash might be the best one because it allows you to get rid of ready characters, which I think this deck would actually struggle with a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And you always can ink it, right? Which is nice.
Yeah.
Yep.
He obviously
That's
did
why
really
maybe
well.
you play Arthur. Yeah, you play Arthur or a Last Hope. Because you have heroes, right, on board. So maybe there's a way that you play a Last Hope to help shift the board and take out. It doesn't take away evasives,
Oh, the
though.
uninkable Arthur, right?
Uninkable
Yeah.
Arthur or the... That's why I was like, pouncing at least can... I don't know, actually, now.
Oh,
You
Scrooge
still need
is a
Dumbo to
hero.
be exerted.
So maybe for the audiences, maybe we cover what pouncing and what
Oh, yeah. Last Hope, or
Arthur
One Last
does.
Hope does +2 resist until the next turn. And if it's a hero, you can challenge ready characters, which is basically the exact same thing Arthur does.
Mhm.
But Arthur doesn't require it to be a hero. Arthur just gives +2 resist.
And gives you a body.
And a body, and that quest for 3, and allows any character to challenge a ready character. Which again, you have some evasive challenging here. You have the Robin Hoods, you have the 5-cost Jasmine. So maybe you're fine if you just... But again, it's another uninkable. I think this deck starts getting strange at that point. So maybe Smash is the best, just because you need to be able to deal with, like, not only Dumbo, but you need to be able to deal with, like, Yzmas or any of these, like, 3-cost things that just, like, untapped. They don't ever tap until they get their value, and, like, they can cause kind of a huge challenge. So
Yeah, you have to get rid of these. If they're undealt, those bomb characters, then they just take over the game.
yeah,
And for reference
Okay.
for everybody, this is a 180 player tournament. So, I mean,
it's huge.
we're
Yeah.
really nitpicking this deck a lot, and it looks pretty solid.
Yeah, really strong. I saw someone post like an analysis of this deck and like explain why they made different decisions. So like, why did they play Jasmine and why did they play Smash? Why did they play BTH? And so it's definitely going to be out there. I'm not sure if the person's going to share any of that information, but I do think there was reasons why they played all these cards. Which again, I think this deck's really interesting, and I love that it didn't take the ally approach and just said, hey, we're going to do what Sapphire Steel does well, is we're going to ramp and play big things that hurt you. And I love BTH and Doc.
And Vincenzo.
And Vincenzo.
Vincenzo,
Vince
so
and Hades and Tinkerbell and Visions and all the, Strike the Raging Fire. It's like, come on.
We're doing
This deck
damage.
This deck is so good. Okay. It'll be interesting how well this could hold up into like this like pile of Blurple. I think this could do really well in the purple steel, but I think, how does it hold up against the evolved Blurple? I'm not sure. We'll see. Okay, let's show one more deck from this tournament. Again, this is as Justin said, 180 players. Purple Steel did end up taking it down, but what got second is very interesting. And our friend Lucas on Purple Shadow Gaming was probably stoked to see this because he is a dog lover, both in reality and in Lorcana. Shout out to Lucas.
I also think
dogs.
you might like this deck because I remember we played the pre-release and you were obsessed with one of these cards.
I was obsessed. Oh, yeah. I saw this. I almost screenshotted this and sent it to the group chat because I was so excited about it. But let's not talk about that card yet. Let's talk about everything else. So this is a kind of Chernodog evolution. But Andy, like, why would this deck do so well? 180 players, like, I think it was 8 or 9 rounds, cut to top 16, play through the 16, and this ends up second, losing to Amethyst Steel, which kind of makes sense. I think Amethyst Steel was always a struggle for this deck, especially the one that did win, because I think the one that won had, like, Fire the Cannons and other things in it. Or no, it had Mines in it and Fire the Cannons, I think.
Oh, wow.
There's a wild list at the up top. We'll take a look at it really quickly. Definitely check out the video version of this if you are listening to audio only, because I think it'll be a better overall experience. But let's get into it. Andy, like, what's going on here and how has Chernodogs evolved and why could this deck carve out the field when we haven't seen Emerald or Amber anywhere?
So it's an aggro deck. There's always going to be aggro players. And if we expect Blurple to be the deck to beat, Blurple struggles really badly into aggro. So if he took a chance, and I'm sure his matchups were pretty well. He played against maybe more Blurple because if I forgot the percentage of this tournament, but I think it was pretty high. You have a favorable matchup into the best deck in the room, so that's why he did so well.
Yeah, I don't remember the percentages either, but I know the Sapphire Steel player posted their matchups, and I think in like 8 rounds, maybe 9 rounds, they played 5 Blurples and 4 Purple Steels. So I think it was just like all Purple Steel, all Sapphire Steel, like mostly. And then a deck like this kind of like carved its way through. And maybe it's because it avoided some of the Amethyst Sapphire decks, or not Amethyst Sapphire, Amethyst Steel decks earlier on. But yeah, super strong. I do think it is interesting, so we'll just talk about this, is Chernadogs, but instead of playing Chernadog at the top end, like a Chernabog at the top end, it's playing Under the Sea and Scrump. And for those that don't know what Scrump does, it's a 2-cost inkable item. This card is so underrated. I didn't even know this card existed until I drafted it one day, and I was like, this card is insane. Scrump, 2-cost inkable item. All of your characters basically gain, or they don't gain it, but you can exert one of your characters to give chosen character gets -2 until the start of your next turn.
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Pretty good. So then you can exert and then cast Under the Sea somehow. So you're exerting all your characters to sing and scrumping. And so you just have 1,000 characters on board somehow. And this is working out for you. Or you can have favorable challenges, which I think is really interesting, where you can exert a character to give -2 and then maybe quest with your other characters. And so their Calhoun sitting there as like a do-to-do, 1/2 for the whole rest of the turn, and it can't actually take something out. And so I do think there's some interesting like play lines here with Scrump. I just don't know when you play Scrump in this deck, like what turn you're playing Scrump. But
You can challenge characters, but not really in this deck. I mean, there's only effectively 8 cards to really do that. Everything else, I mean, you don't even really want to challenge with the 1-cost lady. They're the inkable one, Lady Decisive Dog. Tramp allows you to challenge to something, right? If you can
Right.
beef up like an Ursula, you're like, I don't care.
yeah,
But it's I think Scrump's mainly like, I think you're right. You could take that option sometimes to have a favorable trade, but I think you're mainly just trying to leverage Under the Sea. And you can get out an
Yeah.
early Tramp to help you with singing that pretty early.
Yeah, both tramps can help you sing with that.
that's fair.
The shift
Yeah.
one and as if you have more characters on board, it goes to a 2-cost, 3-cost, and then the following turn you can just not quest, just make everything -2, and then Under the Sea, and then you just have board. So then the following turn you can just start questing away, and they have to catch up.
Yeah. No, it's definitely fair. Yeah. And I do think, like I said too, there might be a case where Scrump like helps you earlier, like give negative and quest with 2 of your characters and then get to basically ready without them being able to challenge back and then do it again the next turn by adding a character and then questing with 3. You know, like I think there's some interesting play lines here. I would love to try this deck, so I might have to sleeve it up and play it digitally. Well, let's move on. Obviously, Sapphire Steel and Emerald Amber did make a showing at this tournament and did carve through the Amethyst decks, which I think is worth noting, right? Like, obviously, great pilots, a lot of hard work, but there's definitely an opportunity there. So let's dig into the last tournament really quickly, which was a smaller tournament. I think it was 73 players. And again, not much more to talk about here. There was one Amber Steel deck that snuck in 8th place or into the top 8, and then did lose in top 8. Outside of that, it was pretty familiar space. You know, a lot of Amethyst decks, very similar to the SSG tournaments. Not many surprises. We will double click on this Amber Steel deck really quickly just to take a look to see how these decks have evolved. This deck is interesting because it wasn't just, hey, I'm going to go Tiana aggro fully on you, but it kind of had that package, but then still also included Fire the Cannons and Smash as well. And so it's kind of like a mixed strategy here. But anything else stand out, or kind of like maybe what's going on here, Andy? Calhoun's an interesting choice. The yellow one or the amber one?
Yeah, that is an interesting
I'm looking
choice.
at right now too.
What's it? It is the
It's a 3-cost inkable. When you play this character, you may choose and discard a card to give chosen opposing character -3 until the start of your next turn.
Okay, so kind of like that Scrump
Yep.
tech, but with a body. So like you can freely quest that Nala, and that Calhoun can't hit it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So they're discarding Lilo.
Yeah, Lilo's probably the best, or maybe Uninkables if they're bricked.
Discarding
Yeah.
their extra dock. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're playing like Nala into Calhoun, and then maybe even getting rid of, like, they're not really leaning into Tiana. They only have 2 Tianas here. So maybe it's like Tiana or Calhoun is kind of your 3-drop to protect Nala and keep going. And then play the long game with Lilos. There's also an interesting card, Stitch, here, which is a 4-cost 3/4 inkable. During your turn, whenever this character banishes another character in a challenge, you may draw a card and gain 1 lore. Another card I just hadn't seen very often, but I have seen it in many of these Amber Steel builds.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because of the Lilo synergy with it. It's an alien, so it can attack. When she quests, it can attack ready characters. And you draw cards. So, and this list wants to be drawing cards. If you don't see Doc.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an interesting list. It's a little bit more spread out and kind of different than what I would have expected. Clearly, again, great pilot drove this deck forward. So shout out to Ben Ramon. So that's week one. Week one is in the books. I think what we expected with maybe some surprises. We have this Amber Emerald deck. Maybe Trinidogs comes back into play as the aggro deck of choice over the Tiana Amber Steel. But Amber Steel didn't really show up, but maybe it shows up again. We're not really sure. Ruby was nowhere to be found.
Just
and
that
so,
one.
like, that's interesting. I guess Ruby Amethyst.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's like an Amethyst deck, basically. No, I kid. But like Ruby didn't really show up that much. We didn't really see Ruby Steel, which we thought maybe shows. You know, obviously our old friend Ruby Sapphire is like sitting on the bench right now. Not sure, like not clear where it's going to go. But let's leave this week with predictions. We're headed, Andy, you and I, and two of our other teammates are headed to CCS this weekend. Justin and a few others are playing in some local events here in Arizona. So we'll have a lot to report on next week on how week 2 goes. But yeah, if you could round out, how do you think week 2 is going to impact the meta? And if you are preparing, without going into full details, for week 2, what are you maybe expecting, or what would you advise people to expect as they head into week 2? Justin?
I think Blue Steel might have an opening coming in this weekend because Amber Steel doesn't do well into Purple Steel typically. And the Blurple build right now is kind of geared with the elephant. It's geared to fight it. And so it's kind of weird. They kind of are putting the rest of the decks in check collectively. But the one deck that kind of does well into both of those is Blue Steel. Some might argue Blue Steel is not great into Blurple. Some might argue that it's really good into Blurple. But it's a pretty strong matchup into both aggro, if aggro decides to try and take advantage of Blurple, and it's good into Purple Steel. So that might be a deck that starts to show up more.
Yeah. It kind of protects you against one of the kings or queens of the castle and these Amethyst decks, because we'll just call, like, let's say, you know, Amethyst Steel is the king and, you know, Amethyst Sapphire is the queen, and they're kind of like holding defense, right? Like they're like protecting everybody. But like, if you can kind of take out one of them and then also take out the person that's trying to take out the other one, like you may actually be able to be king of the castle and queen of the castle. You could be both by the end of the weekend. I like it. I like that strategy. I do think that's interesting though. Like, can you pick one of them? So let's call it Blurple or Amethyst Steel or Amethyst Sapphire. Can you pick one of them to beat and then pick a deck that also beats the deck that's going to beat the other one? I think it's an interesting triangle. I like it. Andy, anything to add?
Yeah, no, I think what Justin said was on point. I think different decks are going to come out to try to like cancel each other out. Blurple was the biggest percentage of this weekend, so I think a lot of people, it's going to be like a repeat of the Red Sea. When Red Blue was taken over, everyone jumped on the bandwagon. So I think I'm going to expect a lot of Blurple this weekend, but also a few new Trinidad players are rising, seeing that this one player, I forgot his name, got second, and there's a lot to feast on this weekend.
Yeah. Michael Chao. Michael Chow?
Ciao.
Yeah. So we could see some dogs running around. We could see aggro maybe come back. I really like Justin's strategy, but I also think like week 2 is hard, right? Like a lot of people didn't play week 1.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like week 2 might be just more of week 1, with just more people being more even assured with their choices. And I don't think as many people as maybe people listening to this podcast or others are actually like, what's it called when you can play with both hands? Like
Ambidextrous? Ambidextrous?
Where like, I don't think many people are like, oh, I played this deck last weekend and now I'm going to fully pivot to this next week deck in 5 days, like to this other deck. Or like, I was going to play this deck and now I saw the meta and now I'm going to like switch to this deck like all of a sudden. I think it takes a little bit longer to evolve. And so I'm probably closer to Andy, but I think we will see some surprises. So I think we will see Amethyst Steel and Amethyst Sapphire continue to reign and kind of dominate top 8s. But I do expect maybe to see more of these 1-off, 2-off kind of creative decks that have kind of pinned down and then got the right matchups. because a lot of this does come down to who you get paired into as well. And so at some point, you just have to pick. The thing that we talked a lot about last week, which I'll repeat, is you can't just find the deck that beats everything. So if you're on the search that's like, I'm going to find the deck, I'm going to find the deck, I'm going to find the deck, like it's just not, I just don't believe it. If you find it and you prove it, like leave it in the comments, let me know, rub it in our faces, that's fine. But I just don't think that's possible. I think you got to pick your triangle. I feel like you have to pick which one you want to play. And then you just got to show up and know your deck. I was talking to someone earlier today on our team, actually, and I was like, what deck you choose does matter, but it doesn't matter the most, in my opinion, if you just pick like one of the good decks. Or if you pick a deck you're comfortable with and you pick a deck that's good, and then you test that deck and play that deck and be like, well, what is the mirror match like? What are my on the plays? What are my on the draws? Like, that's almost more important than you picking the right deck. Because some of picking the right deck becomes like, what's the meta? What's the choices? You're trying to like predict the future, which I think is really hard. Whereas if you just prepare for the future that you're dealt, I think you're going to be in a better seat. So that's it. That's the end of the pod. We'll just leave it like that. We'll be reporting next week post CCS and post some local tournaments to keep you updated on the Fabled meta. But it's exciting. It's juicy. I know people are already bored with it and they're like, yeah, purple, blah, blah, blah. We should ban purple.
Purple, yeah.
Like,
Purple's the new red.
Purple's the new red. Just deal with it. Thanks, everyone. Thank you for being here. If you love the show, you love the content, you can support us by going to purpleshadowgaming.com and picking up Viper sleeves. Viper sleeves are some of the best sleeves. I love them. I use them on all my competitive decks. And you can get a discount on them by using Quest Like a Pro at checkout. And go grab some Viper sleeves. Try them out. And then let us know how you like them in the comments. Thanks, Justin. Thanks, Andy. Look forward to talking to you again next week.
Thank you.
I guess.
See ya.